experienced by not having adequate play space or having any challenges with competing with resources and other students in the area. But secondly, and maybe more importantly right now, I don't see a whole lot of time to do a proper feasibility study if you guys are looking to have comments to your contractors by next month. Is that correct? Like you were telling us, did I hear that correctly, that you're telling us next week? Yeah, so it's March 20th, in 10 days, it's April. The slide says there's a lot of will be's, shall be, right? You're going to be doing this. 10 days is not a lot to do a proper feasibility study in my mind. And I know how government runs around it. It's slow and inefficient. So I'm wondering, what are your realistic timelines for getting a proper feasibility study to look at traffic, to look at space, to look at capacity of the rec center? Can it handle multiple schools going at one place and the community that has been promised the space? So my most concerning comment right now is that there's not enough time to do it properly, and that we're rushing it, and that it goes to some comments like, this would have been a brilliant idea if it was thought about ahead of time and had the foresight and the proper communication, the proper planning. Now it just feels rushed, and it feels ad hoc.
It is rushed because we're under a contract. We're in a contract with a constructor that has time frames and delays and all of those things. And so
don't make a bad decision because you're under the contract, right?
I want to make sure I explain to you what happened. Because one of the concerns was how do we come to the community with information that we don't have enough information. We have worked with planning and zoning. We have asked them to look at a concept plan that's a little more specific than this, but it has the same layout on it. We've asked them to, they've asked us, and we've had enormous amount of sessions over the last 3 weeks to look at what the capacity is, what the traffic is. We've had the contractor look at the building. We've had an outside A&E firm come in and look at the site and give us, their estimates on what it would cost for all of the different categories of information so that we could, first of all, so that we could go to the board and say, it looks like we can do it, but now we have to see what the community says. I mean, the first question was, is it even possible? So when you talk about a feasibility study that takes 6 months, has very complete and thorough, to the point design issues on every single aspect that we've done that now. And before we go to DSUP, to this special use permit process in the fall, we will have had to have every single I dotted and T crossed with regard to all of those plans. But in the meantime, for just really since January, February, we started looking at what would we do. I mean, seriously, we literally didn't even think about this until we had a problem with Mount Vernon and had to think about what would happen if that school failed and we had to move those kids. What do we have in our hands? What asset does this community have that we can put those kids in right now? Erica Bullock, our senior planner, and we got a real estate expert. We went to every unoccupied commercial building in this town. And we went to AEDP, Alexandria Economic Development, and talked to developers to try to see what we could do to find out what types of spaces are available that we could turn into a school. Really, before we thought about even approaching this, we did that first. We didn't even think about this. And then, and I know, I'm just as frustrated as you are in terms of why it wasn't thought of earlier. Apparently, this was talked about 4 years ago. Is that not so? 4 years ago. I mean, it was talked about before.
The Lee Center was supposed to be.
The Lee Center
and then
was
they,
one of the options.
And then they stopped talking about it.
Right, well, the Lee Center wasn't going to work out, for a variety of reasons. We went out for a bid, I understand, and we had four places that came through that were options for elementary school, and we ended up, building Ferdinand T. Day, redoing Ferdinand T. Day on Beauregard Street. And so there was some thought about what would happen, but as you all know, in the last 2 years, after, well, really last year, after the task force met, and after the recommendations were made, and after the schools that were in order got juggled around to another order, and the, promise and the commitment was made by city council and the school system about what we were going to do. That's the plan that we've been working toward, and this school was under construction already. So,
I get that you started earlier, mid-July, February timeframe, and you wanted to make sure that the concept was viable before agitating the community.
no, we
And
didn't start in July, I'm sorry, say that again?
January and February.
January.
January and February.
Yeah,
I didn't say that, I meant to.
I'm sorry, I
But-
said
If you're not gonna have a full plan where it's fully baked until September, you've already told your contractors one thing. At one point, are you gonna stop if it's a sunk cost and just say, we can't do this because I'd rather you not continue, maybe you lose $10 million and then make a completely different and wrong decision.
I understand. We're at a point where we think we've done enough basic information, we've obtained enough basic information about what it would take to do this, to bring it to you.
So what are your weighting criteria? You have a plan that you think is feasible, you have a community that doesn't want this, what's the percentage there that makes your decision? Community is like 30%, our plan is 70%, we go with the plan?
It's a good question, but that's not one for me to answer.
I think that the purpose in us being able to come out to the community is to hear the community's reactions, right? And to hear the feedback and the suggestions. And then we have to make a decision. Is it worth it? Is it worth still moving forward? Even if the community said no, is it worth moving forward? That's a question that we are going to have to ask, not only ourselves, the administrative team, with our recommendations to the board, but then the board and the city council. So I think that is why we're here, to speak with the community, to hear what the concerns are. What are the immediate reactions to this in regards to this concept of moving Douglas MacArthur to the old Patrick Henry? And, I think that either way, I'm speaking on both ends, right? So for Patrick Henry, it is an inconvenience for them. For Douglas MacArthur, it's moving their building to be, their building, new building will be here 2 years earlier than planned, right? Because either way, they were going to have to move. Whether it was to old Patrick Henry or wherever the swing space would have been, they're going to have to move at some point while our building is being constructed. What we're going to have to determine is the community, concerns, or are the inconveniences that are happening from this, is it going to be worth $60 million? Is it going to be worth moving this project forward? Is it going to be worth the fact that we can now use these dollars for other projects that we know have to happen anyway? Is it going to be worth maybe not going out to ask taxpayers to pay more money to do these projects that we know are going to happen? These are all the factors that we have to put into consideration and make a decision. And the reason why it's so quickly, as Ms. Anthony mentioned before, is we are on a contract. So right now we are, in a sense, putting a contract on hold that we signed. And we can't keep putting people on hold and keeping them in limbo around what we want to do. And if this would have happened 4 years earlier, life would be easier too, right? But fortunately it didn't. And I don't want us to miss an opportunity either. I don't want us to miss an opportunity that because we just didn't want to think about something because it could have been hard, or we would have to do these types of meetings out in the community, now we just let it go. The only property that we still own is empty, right? And now we're going to go look in the city of Alexandria to find land, which is very limited in this city. But now we're going to go look for this land that we are potentially looking for Douglas MacArthur, also looking for the high school project, and all of this is happening within the next 4 years on both ends that we have to do. We don't have a choice. So we're really in a bad situation. I wish we did better planning many years ago. I truly do. And I'm not pointing the finger at anybody from the past. I'm just saying I wish we did better planning at that time because we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in. But I don't want us to continue to just say, well, it's too late. Let's just move on. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Lundgren, and I am going to just tell you where I live so you can understand when I start sweating a little bit up here. I live at the corner of Polk and Latham. My driveway is on Polk. My front door is on Latham. And I lived through the construction that I endured, and I said, when this is over, the construction traffic will be gone. And then the parking from everybody, rec center, teachers, rec center employees, parents picking up their children and dropping off their children at the corner of Polk and Latham, people parking in the middle of an intersection. I'm laying this plan for you so you can understand why there's a zero vote of confidence in things that are being said. And I appreciate so much that you said that you were interested in the safety of all children. And I want to make sure that the safety of all children includes the children that aren't going to Patrick Henry, that aren't being bussed in or brought in from MacArthur, that the people who have to leave their driveways in the morning to take their children to school, and it doesn't matter what school they're going to, or that if they're even taking a child to school, that they have to get out of their driveway and then they have to pull back into their driveway because there's no stop signs, there's no consideration whatsoever for the legality of a car parked almost into an intersection. There's no enforcement happening for the safety that we are currently in. And I know you're here for what's happening in the future, but when we are living in this space right now of danger, and I'm going to tell you, I have a 16-year-old. She just started driving. Every time she leaves the driveway, my number one concern is her getting out of our house, not driving on 495. I'm like, please look both ways at that stop sign. Make sure you creep into the intersection. There's still no four-way stop or three-way stop. It's a one-way stop. There's no consideration for anything. We live on streets that are not designed for two-way parking, street parking, with two-way street traffic. Those things do not exist in this community, and we are overloading the system. The system is completely overloaded right now, and this addition, without those changes, and I really don't want eminent domain to come in and take my sidewalks and my front yard away from me so that you can expand the streets, right? I don't want that to happen, but we are at capacity, and nothing has been done to protect our community. The city has given us no vote of confidence. So you bring this plan in, and I see that parking lot, but I also see a brand new community center that people are still just getting used to. So now we're going to put programs, and I'm sorry, I'm going to admit it, I'm one of those programs that wants to be in that community center. I want to bring my moms and my clients into the community. I want the West End moms to have things, and I want to use that community center. Where am I going to tell them to go? Because they can't park in that lot, because that lot is already going to be full to capacity with teachers and administrative staff. So they're going to need to park on our streets. There's no parking on our streets. We are overloading the system. And I think that that needs to be very clear that we have no confidence in this neighborhood right now, that we are going to be taken care of, that our children are going to remain safe. Don't go out the front door, you guys, because it's just not safe on that end of the house. It's not safe to walk up and down because people are barreling through the neighborhood and then all of that. So I just want to say that. And a small example of this is we put cones. I put cones at the intersection so that cars wouldn't park too close to the intersection, so that when people were trying to make a left-hand turn from Polk onto Latham, so moving away from Patrick Henry, that they wouldn't park too close so that you could safely get through. Somebody literally drove over a cone and parked on top of it. There is no respect. There is no respect for safety, and I know that's not your job, but there's no enforcement of it either. So I lay this for you so that you understand what, and I appreciate, you did get empathy at the beginning when you said that we've endured this, and I appreciate that because I know you do have that empathy, and you said you live in the community, but really truly understanding that. And I have a question besides all of this. Has there been any thought, and I don't know what the plan is for bringing 6th, 7th, and 8th grade into Patrick Henry, but has there been, is this a thing, is there a group of students that's waiting in the wings to finally have space to go to school next year and in the future? Or are we at a place where we could take that space and bring in the other grades to utilize more of the new Patrick Henry for those younger kids, as opposed to having 6th, 7th, and 8th grade classes that are not full to capacity? Because I have heard that other middle schools in the city are not filled to capacity, and other schools in the city aren't being used all the way. Is there an option to hold that part of the growth of the new Patrick Henry back and put the children in that space. And that's all I have.
So, Fit for Mom is your organization?
Fit for Mom.
Fit for Mom.
Yes.
Fit for Mom. We need to come and check.
Guy at Park and Ride.
So first off, let me just say, you know, it's not our responsibility to do the stop signs and things. However, we do work closely with the city, and I want to reassure you that I will be sharing this information. I will be talking with the city manager about some of the concerns too. So this is not just for the schools, right? This is for the community as a whole. So I will be sure to share this information and some of the concerns. Someone earlier had asked if I've seen the buses leave at 7:15, and I have not. I was going to go to that. I dropped my son off this morning at 7:45. But I am going to come because I want to see the buses. I haven't seen the buses arrive at Patrick Henry. I haven't seen that traffic pattern. But I do know that that pattern is going to change as we move forward. So that's the way it is today. It's not going to always be that way. Your question about capacity. Our 7th grade at Patrick Henry, the only grade we're adding next year is 8th grade. Patrick Henry is almost at capacity, right? The new Patrick Henry. Because we have our students that are matriculating from 7th grade who are now going to move to 8th grade. So we don't have space in the building to add additional lower grades. And our middle schools, you mentioned that our middle schools are also at capacity in many of them, right? The only school that's not significantly at capacity at the middle grades level is Jefferson Houston. That's the only school right now that's not at capacity. But we have capacity issues across the board. You know, this is a challenge that we're trying to, to tackle as a school division, and I think it happens so quickly, which is it's a good thing to have. I mean, now more people want to go to ACPS. I think that's wonderful. I don't want to tell people don't come, right? So keep coming to ACPS. But it is a challenge trying to address the capacity growth at such a rapid pace when it takes 24 to 36 months to build a building. Even if we wanted to build something, it still takes 3 years for it to happen. And that is kind of, we're trying to play catch up with this, and I don't know how soon that's going to go away, right? So I hope I answered your question, that we're not going to be able to use that space because it's going to be at capacity next year, almost at capacity next year with the 8th grade class.
Well, I don't want to duplicate anyone else's questions or concerns, because obviously we're all concerned parents have a young baby that's running on the streets, and we live on Latham right next to Jen, so we see that this morning almost got T-boned by a bus coming out of the bus lane because they don't look to the right, they just look to the left, and the crossing guard says go, almost got stuck by one. So we're all concerned about safety, and of course the overflow of parking and trash in the area that have been dropped by construction workers. Again, you have a lot to do with that. My one question is, and I know you're balancing on what Kellen said earlier about looking at these ultimate plans. The one thing I'm really kind of concerned about is if you do move forward with this, have you all studied any sort of, or can you reference any models that have seen the plans you're trying to institute where it's been a success, and that, what are you basing on? Is there anyone else that's tried this approach, and have you found it's been a successful model that you all could, use, engage?
Which approach are you
Using this as a swing space where you've seen that, A, it's been cost effective and the timelines have stayed on track, and then also, has it been worth it for the children? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Is it, I'm sorry? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sorry.
It's still tall.
Sorry. How's this? But I just wanted to see if there's been any models or any sort of case studies that you've studied that see, make sure this is cost effective. If in the past people have been able to stay on schedule, how has it affected the community, and most importantly, how has it affected the children? You're being brought into schools, extra bus times, and how it's impacted other schools in close proximity. And that's really what I'm kind of concerned with, as well as another father of a child who probably attending schools. How is it affecting the children's education?
You're asking two questions, really. One about academics, your child's education, and then also the culture and the community itself.
Well, no, I'm sorry, I apologize, I'll clarify. Do you have any case studies or models that you've studied in this quick plan that you're coming up with that have shown that this is an effective use of money, that it's cost effective, that projects don't drag when you do this type of new approach, and then again, how it's affected the children, so.
So, yeah, I mean, again, I think you are asking several questions. The first one is, I don't think many of you you can probably pull it up on here. I mean, the straight answer to your question, I mean, I'll get back to you on what studies, they do this everywhere. I mean, using additional buildings on, multiple campuses, usually they'll either put up relocatables or they use the school that's there. They do it everywhere. Well, okay.
Because we were already doing it. So for example, when Patrick Henry, the new Patrick Henry was built, it was built while the students were occupied in the old Patrick Henry, right? So there was another construction happening while students were in the current building or the old building. That was a cost savings for us because we did not, as a school division, have to go out, find land, purchase that land, build a structure to move kids to that new structure while we're tearing down that school and building something new, right? So we've done it with the new Patrick Henry. That's just one prime example. So we've already done it, right? The difference with that, with what we've done in the past, is that now both schools are going to be occupied for a period of time, right? So that is the caveat to this strategy. And that's why we have to make sure that we have the necessary transportation study that's conducted. We're going to have to find the best way to make sure that everybody has the accommodations they need to operate in the school. In regards to the academics of ACPS, I mean, I have to say, one, I'm a product of Alexandria City Public Schools, so I'm an advocate for it, and I'm also a parent in Alexandria City Public Schools. I truly believe that our kids receive a high-quality education at all of our schools, especially at Patrick Henry, which is in your community. It is a K-8 school, a 7 K-8 school, a phenomenal principal, Ms. Ingrid Bynum, who works in that school, a place where kids are nurtured and cared for, and it is a strong curriculum to make sure that the students' learning abilities are being met. And the one thing that I love most about Alexandria City Public Schools is the fact that kids get exposure to different cultures and they have opportunities to meet people that come from all different walks of life. That is a true gift for our young people. Sometimes we take it for granted because we live in a place like Alexandria. But every child is not growing up in a community that can, know kids who speak Farsi or, Arabic or Spanish, and all these different languages under one roof. And they're having those experiences, which is, I believe, going to change the trajectory of their lives completely. So I'm a champion, right, for ACPS, and we would love to have your baby there.
I'm Mike Wallen, and I live on Peacock. And, I guess I want to say, I think it's valuable that you are looking at this alternative and trying to be as cost-effective as possible with the taxpayers' money. I think some of the concerns you have here may be alleviated if you sort of we're able to discuss not only the complete plan for this, but how it ripples into these other schools, because a number of people have sort of talked about, well, what about this school and what about that school? So I'll just I got one comment and one question. The comment is, this traffic problem is not only right by the school, Peacock and Latham is dangerous at between 7:45 and 8 in the morning, and actually I'm a little bit on both sides of it. People are racing up Latham because they dropped their children off. They're racing down Peacock and making a left turn onto Latham because they want to get their kids to school. And I walk the dog and don't want to go out at that time in the morning because nobody is paying, as was commented elsewhere, nobody's paying particular attention. I haven't seen any of the police there enforcing the stop sign, etc. Those things should be done. Because obviously if you do this, the situation is only going to get worse and has to be addressed. Now my question is, if you do this, is this whole site going to be kind of temporarily cleaned up during this period of time that old Patrick Henry is used as a school, as a swing school, so this doesn't look like a construction zone, which is the way it's looked, with the mud rolling off onto the sidewalk and into the street for the last 2 years?
Yes, that's a great question. That's what the $5 million can help us do, to make it not look like a construction site. So we still want it to aesthetically be pleasing to the eye, right? and that it doesn't look like we just pile kids into a building with all this dirt.
And left a big hill with
Yes.
the dirt rolling down.
So all
it.
of those things are part of the planning, the design phase, to make it so that, you know, it is a school and there are two schools sharing a campus. You know, that is really our goal, not for it to continue to look like the construction site, but it does look like together.
Thank you.
I also want to tell you, my aunt and uncle live on Taney Avenue, where I don't. I live in Old Town. but
Oh, I misunderstood.
I wanted to correct this, so nobody's like, Dr. Hutchins doesn't live on Taney Avenue. You're right. Uncle Tommy and Aunt Sis live on Taney Avenue for 60 years. And I love them both. They're both excellent. Thank you.
My name is Keith Cruzy. I'm a neighbor on Latham Street. My children are both in KCPS schools. They started out here at Holt and are now currently at Hammond and will be going to Minnie Howard next fall. We live on Latham Street, south of Taney Avenue, or I guess it's south of Taney Avenue. So we live a little bit away from the school, but we have 9 years of experience of walking that commute every day. And I want to point out that it's not just, we're not talking about putting 1,500 students and teachers and administrators to serve them on that property, but we're also on the commuter route for Polk through this neighborhood as well as Hamish. So there's 4,000 students in the half-mile radius of each other for schools that are going through our little residential neighborhood. So just one thing to point out. I wanted to ask a question and then make a couple of comments. And my first question is, you've mentioned several times that George Mason, there was an issue with George Mason that kind of precipitated your decision-making on this. I'm not aware of it. I'm not sure if anybody else in the audience is, but what was the issue and how is it being addressed? Can it be addressed?
So the concern that we have was actually Mount Vernon, not George.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mount Vernon.
So Mount Vernon, in the fall, we had, with all the rain and everything, we were supposed to complete the roof this past summer, that we did not complete the roof. So there was water intrusion that was happening at Mount Vernon, a significant amount of water intrusion, which flooded the auditorium, which produced mold within the auditorium that was shut down for several months. During that period of time was when we had a targeted facilities assessment conducted. And fortunately, the results that came back did not require us to evacuate Mount Vernon. But we wanted to be prepared in case that came back and said we had to evacuate the building or have kids out of the school. Where will we put the kids in the middle of the school year? Like, what will we do? And that is when Ms. Anthony had talked about us looking at all potential options that were around us. And we looked at the asset that we own that's empty, which would be the old Patrick Henry at that time. So that is what started the conversation. But we stopped that conversation once the kids could stay at Mount Vernon, right? But then it resurfaced when it was time to talk about the demolition of the building in January, where we began to talk about it a little more to say, well, is it possible? Like, if we needed to keep that building, is it actually possible to do that? And when we spoke with the current contractor for the construction workers who are currently working there, or the contractor who's currently at the site, we worked with them to find out the feasibility, more so verbally, not necessarily going in and doing all the work to determine that. They know the site better than anybody else because they've been on it. They know the old site, they had to build a new building there. And through that process was when we were able to discover it actually could be feasible. And when we brought that to the board, this potentially could be feasible, we wanted to come to the community to see, well, what would the reaction from our community, what would be the concerns of the community if we were to do that? Is it something that the community would support? Is it something the community could bear, for the next few years, and those types of things, and that was why we're here today.
Okay, I'm sure you're getting plenty of that feedback. So one of the concerns we have, and I appreciate the position both of you are in, you're kind of new to the problem, coming in and inheriting some of the decisions that were made before your watch. But that's quite honestly what is frustrating to a lot of us. And so going back to your example about Mount Vernon and kind of what started you thinking about this, you've said repeatedly that the old Patrick Henry is going to be a one-time swing space for MacArthur. And you're considering that instead of investing the money, $60 million, into having a regular swing space school. So we take care of MacArthur. That doesn't eliminate the possibility that another school could get flooded or some sort of disaster could happen to a school where you're going to need to have a swing space. And so you haven't really addressed that issue. because Patrick Henry will be full, or let's just say after MacArthur is done and those students move out, now you have another crisis. Our concern is this is going to become the permanent swing space in the neighborhood, and that's what we need. And I know you told us that that's not the plan, and I appreciate that, but it's not you, it's the city. We don't trust them, right? They've gone down this road. I spent a lot of time, our neighbors here spent a lot of time with the new Patrick Henry School, very proudly supporting, kind of going through that process and making sure that ACPS and the city did the right thing to build the right school, and I'm delighted that it finally came out that way, but it wasn't without a lot of hours at groups like this, and going to school board meetings, and investing a lot of time and effort in doing that, and going to city council meetings, and meeting with all of the city council members and school board members to make sure they made the right decision at the end of the day. And I'm a little frustrated I have to go back and do that again in order to make this happen. So, that's the frustration that we deal with. And the bottom line is, we know ACPS doesn't control all of the things that are going to make this a success or a failure. It's the city. We've talked about traffic, and that's a city responsibility. And the city tells us that they're going to manage it. They tell us that they're going to manage parking off of the street during the construction. Nothing happens. It doesn't get monitored. That's what they were told, and then they throw up their hands and say, well, there's nothing we can do about it. We asked for Alexandria Police Department to provide police presence at Latham, during this, Latham and Taney, while they were going through this process with Patrick Henry. The response we get repeatedly from Alexandria Police Department is they don't provide police coverage for monitoring schools in the morning. It's their shift change. They don't have the resources to be able to support that. I'm here to tell you, I expect the city to invest money to make sure that does happen for this, because otherwise it will be a disaster and somebody's going to get hurt. That's just the reality of it. And I know that that's not something that you all control. It has to be the city, and I'm a little disappointed that there are no city council members here unless I'm missing it. And at the end of the day, one of the things I'm looking for is if this is a failure, I want to know who to vote out of office, because that's really our only recourse. And same for the school board members. I think we have one here, and I appreciate that, but I'm a little disappointed there were not more school board members here to kind of hear what the community says. So those are the frustrations that we're dealing with. You talk about busing, and we're going to provide more busing to get the students from MacArthur, but we can't do busing now. We've scaled back so that now my kids have to walk a mile and a half on heavily traveled roads to get up to Minnehaha because we don't have enough buses to cover what we used to do for our neighborhood. I can't get buses to go down the T.C. Williams events because I don't have enough buses to cover it. So how are you going to provide more buses in order to do that? Are you factoring that into your investment for making this work? I suspect not. I suspect it's $5 million to renovate the building, and we're not factoring in all the other things that have to drive up that cost of that project. So, that's the challenge and the frustration that we have, and I know that it's not you. I know we're going to have to engage with City Council to make sure that they do the right thing if this is going forward. That's the end of my statement. I have a couple questions for you.
Could I just make one quick response?
Sure.
Now, one is that, we do work collaboratively with the city. And I just want to say that we have a very strong working relationship with the schools in the city. And it hasn't always been that way. But we're at a place now where we do have trust between both entities and that we're working collaboratively. And I think that is going to make a difference. And even though, I was not here as superintendent, and John Anthony was not the COO, we still own everything that's happening today, right? Because we're now in the seat. So it's our responsibility to still do our jobs and to give our expertise and to use, our past experiences to help the organization as a whole make really sound decisions that are going to benefit ACPS and the city at the end of the day. So I just wanted to make that point to you all. That we do own it as well. And there's several board members here tonight, so I just want to make that point because I see 4 of them in the audience. I know Cindy, she had to leave for the question, but we have Dr. Michelle Reed, who was here this evening. We have Ms. Heather Thornton, who is also here, and then we have Mr. Cynthia Green, who is over in the back. I know that our board chair, Ms. Cindy Anderson, she had to attend the PTAC meeting over at Minnehaha. So we do have representation tonight. I met with our deputy city manager is also here this evening. And I just met with the city manager before coming to this session. So everyone, this is being followed and recorded for anyone to see. That's including our officials who are in office and currently in their seats, as well as our former officials and anybody in the community to watch, to make judgments and to see conversations and discussions that are happening.
Sure.
So they had some questions. Yes.
Dr. Hutchins, one point of clarification, they're having a budget work session, that's on the city manager and the entire city council.
So, a couple of questions that I have, I guess, about the process. So, I'm wondering what you could hear in these meetings that you're having that could possibly change your mind, that this may not be feasible. The next thing is, if you miss that deadline with the contractor, what happens? What are the consequences either way if you're not able to kind of get to a good decision, or if you decide that you're going to turn off the contractor at that point, can you go back? If you look at it further and decide this isn't going to work, what are your options at this point? As somebody pointed out, we're 2 weeks away from probably when you have to make that decision, or a couple weeks away, so there's not a lot of time, and I'm just curious about what in the process and what are your decision points. Thank you.
So part of the decision making, so the feedback that we're receiving today, it affords the board an opportunity to hear what is this impact to the community? What is the community saying about this decision or this particular concept? And then we will have to make a decision whether it's worth continuing to move forward and pursue it. In regards to the second question was about
What are the consequences?
the consequences. There are two consequences. One, legal and financial implications if we don't meet that deadline. That's why there's a sense of urgency to try to come up with a decision as to how we want to move forward, because we are within a contract with them at this time. So time is of the essence, because we have a legal binding contract to say they were going to demolish, the building. So there are legal as well as financial implications that come out of not making the decision sooner than later.
And then my last question is, if you turn off that contract, so if you say, we're going to go forward, we've decided in this 2 weeks time frame that it's feasible, we're going to move forward on it, and then you get a little further down the road and decide, okay, maybe that was a bad idea, or we've got other options we didn't see at that time. Can you turn them back on, or is that the last?
Of course, we have, so at that point, then we have the option to go back to having somebody demolish the building if that was the case. If we move down the road and we say, hey, we want to do this, and now we don't want to do it, then we would have to hire a contractor to then proceed with the demolition of the building. So that's what could occur.
Can you just negotiate for more time here? We're on this 2-week deadline. Can't we just ask them for a month, please?
I think that whether it's 2 weeks or a month, right, the decision has to be made, right? And I think that I'm not really sure what an additional month would afford us to do, other than have more sessions like this, if we want to continue to have more sessions in the future about giving updates around the decision that's going to be made. But I'm not really sure what we benefit from waiting another month to make the decision.
And also back to the legal and contractual issues.
I want to make sure people who raise their mind got to speak. Yes.
So at this point, we've held them off for almost 60 days from doing what they were supposed to do, which pushed the end game. For instance, if we decide not to do this, the completion point of the entire construction is now not in August anymore, which is when it was supposed to be finished. It's now in October. And so we don't want to keep pushing it. If we're going to do it, we need to do it. If we're not going to do it, then we need to determine that so that we can look at schedule and the impacts, there's cost impacts to elongating the schedule and pushing the completion time frame that we're under down the road.
What is the cost to reach a contract? What is that going to cost?
Well, we'll find out on April 4th.
No, that isn't an answer. And I don't
Okay,
think
so there's about $8.5 million left on the contract. And they have spent about $4 million, so about half of that already in materials that have already been ordered.
Right.
So we will be liable for, and I said it that way because some of it is, it depends. It depends on which money they've spent, and they're going to charge us for a fee plus the money that they've already spent for the items that they've ordered. We have not stopped them. We've stopped them from doing certain things. We've asked them to continue with what can be finished on the site that won't impact this decision, but they have also placed orders for materials and all of those types of things. So that's why I said it depends, by April 4th, it depends on how much they've accumulated. We know how much they've bought and that they've placed orders for by now. How much of those they'll be able to send back or we have to take and we have to store will depend on the date that we talk about. There's going to be a day-for-day delay that has a fee associated with it with the contract. So those will all be calculations that, depending upon when this date is placed, that we'll make that, we'll make that determination.
Take away from this money you're going to save.
Well,
You have to
so,
take that out of that.
so out of the 8.5 million, if they've spent, say, half of it,
Right.
then there's some credit, okay? Then we know from both the architect and we know from the contractor that it's going to cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 million in order to do the sitescape and also to refurbish the building. So we have to offset the credit from the cost. And then, of course, those items that we can't send back, we'll have to put those in storage and we'll have to calculate how much it will cost if we have to either buy the work again 4 years from now, 3 years from now, or we have to, or if we can reuse those materials. So there are a number of elements that have to go into the actual calculation. I just didn't want to give you I don't have an exact number.
I understand, but there's a cost involved.
There's a cost on both sides,
And
correct?
then they're not being upfront about the fact that we are losing money by doing this.
Well, we're losing money because it will continue to be a day-for-day delay after as of a particular date certain.
No, but I mean, if we had progressed going forward the way we were promised, and this would be done in August, there wouldn't be a cost, an additional cost.
That's right, but we stopped
But
this
you
on
stopped
purpose
it.
in order
So
to
that costs us
consider
money.
this.
Let's get to the next question, because I want to make sure people wait.
And I'm not going to repeat a lot of the points, just to go agreement, a lot of the points we have, and I'm another ACPS parent. I have a raising ninth grader and a child at Polk. I would also ask if you would maybe, when you talk about the families who are impacted, you talk about Patrick Henry Parker, but also Polk. I mean, this is the Polk neighborhood. I've never heard you talk about Polk families, and Latham on, including my street, which is one of those streets the buses are being touched already, and Patrick Henry are being impacted. Now, I consider Patrick Henry like one of our sister schools. We're excited for them. I'm glad for the rec center. We're glad they got a brand new school. They deserve it. But I think what people have expressed to you now with the opening of that school, that we're really seeing safety issues that are bothering us. And I know earlier when you said, what can the neighborhood bear? I'm kind of at my level. I'm not sure how much more I can bear because these promises keep getting broken. Keith mentioned the Minnie Howard bus. We lost our school bus for high school. 4 of us testified to the school board, and thank you school board members who are here, to say, what happened to our bus? Well, we just lost our bus, right? And then the construction keeps happening, and the custodians don't get their agreements. There's been a lot of broken promises, it feels like, with ACPS. That I think we've got this crisis of credibility. We really bought into the public schools. I mean, I was at ACPS when they split Francis Hamlin into 3 schools. We saw the turmoil. I think you do a good job. I'm excited to have you here, and we want everyone to succeed. But I think the problem is now for me as a parent, as I feel like we come to these meetings, I'm not sure if we feel heard. I don't feel like we see. This feels like a page of company, which is really my only question, is what is the plan B? I mean, what else are you considering? Is there any other site that's
So actually, this is a plan B.
Okay,
Because
so what's
plan
the-
A
what's the
is
plan?
that the Douglas MacArthur will be built in 2025, and we would purchase land and build swing space at about $60 million. So that's the original plan.
So is that-
This is an alternative plan to the original
So
plan.
that site's identified, that $60 million site?
No, it's not. No sites of any schools that are built in 2025 or forward, if there was a swing space, we would not have the dollars today to purchase a site for that.
So
That
we-
wouldn't be until at least 3 to 4 years prior to that site.
Okay, so if we don't do this, we're just kind of kicking the can down the road, which is going to kind of be a CPS. Because you're just going to say you have to find the $60 million site that we haven't identified and haven't defined.
Well, that was a part of the original plan. Yes, so the
Okay.
original plan was that we were going to find land, build a structure to use as swing space, and then Douglas MacArthur would open its new doors in 2025.
Okay, but that land hasn't been, okay,
No, the land is not.
so years of planning, there's no other plan, right? There's no other site that we can work with.
There's no other site, but there's sites in the city of Alexandria.
So there are sites?
Yeah, there's
There are-
places in Alexandria where you can find a site to build, but it's very limited.
Okay,
You know,
well,
so
where would those be? Just where are we?
there's sites all over the city, and I don't have a list of all of them, right? But the point that I'm trying to make is that for the original plan for the construction of 2025, with the building opening in 2025, we are not at the phase of looking for sites or purchasing sites, because it takes dollars to do that. That is not put into the CIP in our original plan until 2021, I believe. So we wouldn't start looking for sites for the $60 million structure until 2021 in our original plan.
Okay, I mean, I do capital campaign for my job, and I feel like we have a longer lead time when we're making these kind of decisions, and I think that's part of the frustration with this 1 week or 2 weeks or 1 month to make this decision to impact our neighborhood. I think that's frustrating for parents. I heard you too that you work very closely with the police, but we don't see any impact of that, right? I mean, that's the thing. I think we need to see some action with some words. So I need to see a cop on Latham Street, or I need to see a bus coming Howard. I mean, there's certain concrete things we could do. I mean, Polk is a great school. We have a lot of land. You see, we don't have a stage. Right? We've lost our stage. So we, in Hammond, I have a child in Hammond. We talk about mold. There's also mold at Polk. I mean, I feel sorry for the city of Alexandria. But I mean, the neighborhood's kind of taking this on the chin. What can we bear? And I'm not seeing any, well, if you bear this, Latham Street, which you'll have to beg forgiveness, you'll get this. Like, I'm not seeing any of that. I'm seeing the bottom line for the city. So I think if we're going to be practical about this, if this is a fated company, which is sad to me, but it feels like it is, like, what are the practical benefits of doing so in the neighborhood from this? Because right now, we are scared. I was hit by a bus as a car as a student. We are very scared about traffic. Come hang out on Latham Street and have a cup of coffee. There doesn't seem to be any change, right? So these are the kind of concrete things I see. I was trying to think of what the next steps would be after these listening things. What can we show the neighborhood some good faith? I would love to see as a parent in the Polk community and the Thatcher Henry community and the Barker community as we move through this process. Because right now, I think we're just tired. We've tried to believe in the school system and what we're trying to do, but we're not seeing any real benefits to us. We're just seeing years more. I mean, 700 students, how many buses is that? And staff? How many buses would be 700 students on our street? 15 buses? Okay, so 15 buses coming in, and then we have 80 staff, so that's 80 single driving staff, that's 80 more cars, plus parent drop-offs, because I don't live on Latham, but there doesn't even be a parent drop-off. It's just on Latham. So these are practical things I think we need to work with the city, work with the city. We have a parent drop-off in Polk, and no one uses it.
So I do want to make sure that we can bring some more people up to ask
So
the
that's
questions. I know you made
practical
comments.
things, but I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
We appreciate that. We're trying to get through questions. If we can try to get our questions in for people so we can respond to it. I know it's 8 o'clock now and some people.
Sorry, hi. My name is Jasmine King, and I'm a parent of Patrick Henry, 2nd and 3rd grade, and I apologize to the Polk neighborhood because I feel like I am an invader because, I've had a couple of notes on my car. I have 2 basketball players, and I've had to park, right next to people's houses and, say, hey, we'd like to have the spot for so-and-so. So they've been that patient so far. We're going to push this back more. My other thing is, as you said, we keep pushing it back and back on our contractors. Well, if you had this thought in January, why didn't you come to us then? The other thing is, if you do say no, because I don't think any of us feel like this is really a no. I think you just want our opinions on how upset we're going to be, but it doesn't really feel, to me it feels like a decision is already made. I'm just going to say it. And it's unfortunate because we're a community, we don't want our decisions made for us. Nobody wants that. We already have 2 schools in one neighborhood, which is odd to me, and it is a traffic crazy world. My kids do ride the bus, and if we don't make it out on time, I do go out there. It is crazy. And most of the time, what I see, it's on TV, you know, people who are going out there and they just want to go straight. They don't care, you know. I was 19 and under before. I didn't have kids. You don't think like that. You are just going to go. We can't have another cop. What are the proper channels to get another one out there? We don't want to move the one on Jordan because God forbid somebody gets hit at that crosswalk. But we do need another one. I'm really glad that my kids ride the bus. I hope not one of the ones that are going crazy. I do feel comfortable with our bus driver. I love Alexander City Public Schools. Ms. Bynum, you know we love you. I love the staff. The playground is a huge concern. If my 8-year-old was here, she would want to talk. Her teacher has decided that she's going to go ahead and bring out jump. The kids are playing on the parking lot right now, as I'm sure you're aware. The teachers are incorporating what they can do so that they're not bored outside. You know, there's only so much you can do in that loop. We're going to push back time on that as well. How much time? And then what happens if, you know, anything could happen? You start building this old Patrick Henry, which I don't think is worth saving, but I haven't seen the building plans. I don't really know. But as soon as one thing happens, anything could extend that to 6 months more. What's another 6 months there? Well, that's a year. And then after that, then what? I don't think that this decision should be made. Is there actually going to be a vote? How is this decision going to be made within, what, like 7 days?
So the vote will take place at the school board, and that will happen
Next month. What was the week? No, I'm sorry. What's the due date? You mentioned a week from now.
First week in April. We have to take everyone's comments. The school board will consider everyone's comments next week, but the vote won't happen until the week after.
Okay.
That's the plan right now.
And there will be a recommendation from the administration.
Okay. I feel like everything else pretty much has been said that I had for. And you said that this has already been held on for 60 days for our contractors, and you know, if we were to just nip this in the bud, then we would have to take, you know, responsibility for our inventory at that point, our building cost, right? You're already going to build 2 new schools, right? So why wouldn't we just do that? If they've already bought the materials needed for another school, we would already need that for the 2 schools that you're going to be doing, Core Kelly and, what was George Mason? We're going to need those materials, are we not? So it wouldn't be a loss, like a total loss is my...
So the materials that they're purchasing is to demolish the school, and George Mason and Core Kelly are not scheduled to be demolished for another 6 and 8 years.
Okay, 6 and 8 years. And MacArthur, if the original plan wasn't to be built for 5 years from now, does that mean the condition isn't even that urgent that this needs to be done? I'm sorry, that's a question. I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry.
The old Patrick Henry is actually in better shape than the current Douglas MacArthur.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Because I'm a Patrick Henry parent, seriously, no. Okay, that was my last question that wasn't already covered. Thank you. I do appreciate you guys coming out. As much as you guys have listened to us, it just really does feel like the decision is made, though I know it's going to be voted on. But just so you understand, and obviously from the plus, we all kind of feel that way. So we don't want that. We don't want it all.
I'm one of the community members that does not have kids, that lives in the neighborhood, and the only reason I found out about this meeting is because I'm great friends with someone who does have children in the neighborhood. I didn't receive a letter in my mailbox about what was happening. These proposed changes do impact everyone in the neighborhood, with and without children, and I have many friends who have kids that I love dearly that I want to make sure are taken care of with this plan. But it really sounds to me, I'm getting concerned that it sounds like the obligations to the contractors are really trumping the obligations that ACPS has with the community, and that you're really sacrificing some goodwill and buy-in that you could get from the community by taking some time to give us all a chance to feed into this. And it's a messy process, but I think it's really important that we do have the goodwill of the community because we support 2 schools, and the children who go to both schools deserve great educations, and everyone who lives in a neighborhood deserves a safe environment. I don't know how the people who live on Latham do it. All the people that I know who travel in the morning or afternoon off Polk up to Latham, I almost got hit this morning. I've almost gotten hit twice in the last week. And it's because people are parked way up on the curb. I hope that's something that you're hearing loud and clear from the community, that this is a very unsafe situation that should have been thought about as part of the revision of Patrick Henry. And again, I would just really say, in terms of the outreach, I really think you need to involve the entire neighborhoods that are between Polk and Patrick Henry in this. We all have a stake in it. When I found out about it, I made copies of the letter my friend who received the email sent to me and distributed it along my neighborhood. I was uniformly told by people that they had dealt with ACPS and the city before, that both entities had made up their own mind, and therefore there was no use coming to this meeting. That's not what you want from a community. And I appreciate you guys coming here as the face of this, representing this. I'm sure it's no fun to listen to all this stuff, but you have great resources in this community, and I really hope that you listen and take us seriously.
I'm going to try and keep this brief. Jeff Lundgren, I live on the corner of Polk and Latham. My wife had spoken earlier. As she will attest, I'm a very cheap person, so this sounded appealing. However, I'd say how ACPS and the city have handled the whole thing has completely alienated me. There's no way I would ever consider this based upon everything that was shown to me, we were told before, and nothing has happened. So my concerns are threefold. One is the parking, the safety, and the process. So I'd like to know, not to rehash the past, but what was the plan for the construction worker parking? Because they parked all around everywhere starting at 5:30 a.m. It was a safety nightmare. I don't blame them, but I don't know what the plan was where they're going to park. So where were they supposed to park, and why didn't it ever get addressed?
I mean, there was a parking plan, and many of them were shuttled down every day from You're saying they weren't?
I got a video to show you.
Okay, well, there was a parking plan. The contractor was responsible for that parking plan. We had quite a few people that got tickets. We took all the connect calls and all the mayor calls and all of your calls to the extent that we could and get them to the contractor. Did we ever penalize the contractor?
Nothing happened.
And we went through a lot of, beg your pardon?
Is this the same contractors we would move forward with?
Well, it's the contractor that we're in right now.
We got leverage.
So I mean, I don't blame them, but there appeared to be no plan by ACPS.
No, there was a plan. I think enforcement is more of an issue because of the people and the time that it takes from the city and us to enforce.
The enforcement was we put up a sign that says you can't park here.
And the city did that.
And right, and then nothing happened. Right. Again, I don't blame them. So what is the parking situation now for the community center, or the rec center, everywhere? Because I'm told that people are told to park in the neighborhood. So what is the parking situation for the rec center? And for this plan going forward, I saw the puzzling, but the loop there. But if you're going to have two schools with the capacity issues we already have, you're going to need to build a multi-level parking garage.
Yeah. Well, this is the final plan, and we do know that some of the teachers are going to have to be shuttled in or brought or coming.
That's not easy to
You know, we're building as many parking spaces. So again, this has been resigned.
Second thing is the safety, all right? Holcomb Latham is a disaster. $60 million is going to be the least of your problems when you get a negligent lawsuit from something happening there. When we moved here, in 2008, and this is again why I have zero confidence in anything, you know, in anyone's opinion or views being heard. When we moved here in 2008, I wrote a letter to the city. I said, Holcomb Latham is a disaster. Would you please look at putting a stop sign in? People are racing up the hill. You can't see. It's just poor visibility. And this was before you had buses and everybody parking in front of the fire hydrant and you know, all that stuff. They did a study to their credit. However, they said that we didn't need one. They said actually that putting one in would be it would be unsafe because it would give people the impression of safety. So I don't know how that would give. I mean, I threw it away, but it's like I think you can understand. I have zero confidence that anything as far as safety is important there. I mean, it is a disaster. I would recommend if you want to come and see it, come Tuesday, because then you get the recycling guys and the trash guys. And, those guys do a great job, but they're more traffic cops than trying to do their jobs because there's no space. Everybody's parked everywhere, and they're trying to do their jobs. You've got buses coming out here, throwing a little rain. I mean, it's a mess. Third part, the process. The process is outrageous, right? It feels like it's a rush job, right? It's not ready for prime time. I would say, you want to save $60 million, I'd say, I'm all for it. If we could save $45 million and you company with something, with a plan that's got some meat to it, that addresses the safety and the traffic and give us some type of confidence that you've thought these things through, as opposed to, we got to get to the, we've got a commitment to the contractor, gives me zero confidence. That just says that we're going to push forward and we're going to give 4 more years of hell in this neighborhood because we got to get this done now. So I plead with you to come back. I'm adamantly opposed to this, what I've seen here. Give us something more concrete. Let us know that you're going to make it a safe environment, that you've thought about how you're going to handle the capacity, the parking, fix those things. Let the community know that their interests are being heard, and you might have a more willing and open audience.
My name is Gordon Johnson. I live up on Peacock. And having seen how Alexandria addressed the BRAC, I also have no confidence in the method that they went through to do a faith humbly of the plan. What my question is what kind of did they, I want to know the research that they did to see whether there was a way to do a staged construction at MacArthur where you could maybe put a large parking garage in the back so that you could start shifting and use the parking lot area for some new construction and be creative with how to expand MacArthur in situ so you're not disturbing the students. I attended MacArthur, and I was proud of the fact that I walked to the school. And if you're having a bus now, that's obvious. But the point is that we're being railroaded, and I would like to know what kind of a plan was researched to do some in situ construction. They did that for Patrick Henry. We had those big long wings of temporary buildings. So.
You had land that MacArthur doesn't have any, and we're also building a building that's almost twice the size of the school right now. And so we've done some massing studies. The architect has gone in and looked at for that swap of land, exactly how we could do some of the things that you're talking about, because of course we had to look at that. But when you think, looking at the fact that you're building a building that's literally almost twice the size of what it is now, it's just not, it's not possible.
I still
Phased
feel,
occupancy plan is what you're talking about, where you do it, you know, like as you said, you can keep them in one part of the building and then build the other part, but, you know, it's a study we've done that do not show that that's possible. Or in the garden site.
I just wondered how creative, you know, whether, because having like 2 weeks to say something about it, you know, we're just stuck, you know, and not only do we not, I mean, there are monetary consequences to not starting in 2 weeks that weren't accommodated for by giving enough time for people to talk. Really disappointing.
So I know I already took the time once here, we'll raise this up this time. But, you know, we were all kind of caught off guard by this meeting. In other words, just not much time to react or maybe formulate some, myself, I wasn't able to formulate some good questions here, but in the time I've been sitting over here, I've downloaded the thing that's on your website that's talked about the task force that was assembled in January, presented the findings in January of 2018, right? I find it almost a little bit concerning, like the other citizens have said, but also sort of humorous that the key observation in the capital planning implementation subcommittee findings were Alexandria lacks a unified and instilled vision for the future. It says we recommend Alexandria define its targeted new reality to clarify priorities for decision making when considering how to best deliver capital projects and services. Number 2 is the city and ACPS have a tendency to jump to capital solutions rather than explore broader options to deliver services or capabilities. And number 5, I'm just skipping through a couple of highlights, maybe like 4 of them. The current budget cycle lacks sufficient time to deliberate on capital needs and propose project solutions. So we recommend the city and ACPS consider revising the budget calendar to decouple the annual operating and annual capital budgeting cycles in order to provide adequate time and resources to review, engage, and make capital decisions. Number 6, the 10-year duration of the CIP makes it challenging to provide the same rigor of analysis for all projects, apply prioritization, criteria, equitability, and clearly and manage expectations cycle to cycle. And I'll say one last one here. Civic engagement is critical, but should not be treated as a substitute for strong leadership by elected representatives. We recommend leadership ensure that current civic engagement policies and practices focuses on the public becoming well-informed champions of citywide issues while providing input on individual projects. Leadership must remain transparent in decision-making and feel empowered to choose solutions that are best for all of Alexandria. Now, I know that for best of all the Alexandria is up for interpretation here when we're talking about funding. But when we're talking about concerned citizens here, and we have all of these ironic warnings from 2018, and here we are sitting here with 2 weeks notice, or me myself a couple days notice, that this is coming through. I'm kind of concerned that we've had this plan up front. You had the foresight to do these type of task force. We do it, I do it at my job when we're doing different contract proposals, white papers, whatever it is. Why are we sitting here now and having these questions with a week to make a decision?
Appreciate you indulging me for a couple more minutes, just a couple more comments. It was said earlier by my neighbor Beth about the impact of Seminary Road and the decisions that are outside the scope of this, but they have a material impact, I think, on the wisdom of this decision. So if they go down to 1 lane on Seminary Road, that will greatly exacerbate the problem of getting the students in cars and buses from the MacArthur area down to Patrick Henry. Big problem. It already is an issue. You can't get from one end of the city to the other without 40 minutes during meeting time. And I work in Dumfries, 30 miles away. I get there faster than it takes me to get to Old Town at 5 o'clock in the evening. Just a fact. And you're making it, this will make it worse. We'll add more traffic when we don't need it on. The other point I wanted to make is, I'd like you to consider this. The students that are at Patrick Henry now, there's a very real possibility that they will go through their entire school career at that school not having an outdoor field to play in the entire time they're there. That's pretty sad. actually, that they're not going to have the benefit of being able to have play fields for their school that they're able to use their entire career until they get out to, Minnie Howard or the TC at that point. That's important, and we're talking about that school population, those students there. MacArthur's going to be in and out in a couple of years, but those students are impacted because they've been dealing with it for 3 years while their school's been built, and now they're going to have to deal with it for another 4 years. And that's sad. It's a bad outcome, I think, in my opinion, for what ACPS is trying to accomplish. And the last point I wanted to make is, and this, I go back to kind of the question I had about Mount Vernon and the issues you have. You're still not addressing the need by this solution for having a swing space for those emergencies, right? There are other things that you can consider, and I feel like this decision is short-sighted because, you are looking at one option. We all suspect that it could become a permanent solution, but you're articulate your word that that's not the plan. So what is the plan for that swing space afterward? We've always been concerned that the city and ACPS has been short-sighted. That's why we're in this situation right now. That's why you're here. You've inherited something that, you're having to address right now. Why not take the time and invest that $60 million in a swing space school, which will also add capacity? Because I've heard multiple times, we're over capacity. We build Patrick Henry, it's already at capacity. We go to Jefferson Houston and it's at capacity except for, the middle school. We're at capacity for TC or over capacity for Hammond. Why not add the school now? Because Amazon's coming. Get ahead of the game. Invest the money now. Be smart about it and start investing in the facilities and infrastructure we need right now. There are spaces out there you can build schools. We've got a landmark plan. Maybe we can put a school there. We put one on the Eisenhower. There are many options. And I just think that the city needs to consider that rather than jumping on the first thing that's out there. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really address the long-term problem. That's my concern. Thank you.
Amy Jallo. I am a first-year student here at Patrick Henry. So I'm definitely new to the game of being a parent and being involved. But I also grew up in Alexandria, and I love it so much that I decided to come back and be a teacher in ACPS. And so there are so many issues here that I feel like it's a domino effect. Let's zoom in a little bit. What do we want to do, or what is ACPS going to do to make sure we retain those great teachers that we do have at Patrick Henry? My daughter loves kindergarten. But what are we going to do to make sure we maintain that morale for those staff members? I heard you say something about shuttling them in. I worked at William Ramsey for 1 year, and that was a nightmare, in that parking was the difficulty. Every day I had to wonder if I was going to get to work early enough to have a parking space. That impacted my day. So I cannot imagine what this is going to do to our teachers, let alone the trickle down to our students. My child. I'm worried. I sacrifice every day for a job that sometimes is thankless. But what are you guys going to do to ensure that we're keeping those phenomenal teachers that we do have?
First, I just want to say thank you for being a teacher, especially here at ACPS. And we're lucky to have Ms. Bynum here today. And as you all know, she just mentioned that your kindergartner who attends Patrick Henry, it really is about the leadership and the school environment that retains our teachers and that they're being valued. And, I think it's very important for us to ensure that not only do our teachers have the resources that they need to be able to teach in the classroom, as well as to be able to teach our kids, but that we are also providing them with the supports that they're going to need to do their jobs on a daily basis. This project is separate from that, right? This is not going to impact the supports that teachers are going to need in their classrooms. This is not going to impact what's happening inside our walls of our schools. This is not going to impact what's happening inside of our classrooms with our students. And it's not going to impact the resources that our teachers have to teach their class lessons every day.
How can you guarantee that?
Because I think that, one, all of the things that we're doing in regards to the second school on this campus, this is outside of the school, the new Patrick Henry. The old Patrick Henry is separate, where Douglas MacArthur teachers are going to be teaching their kids in that building. These are two separate schools. They're not joined together. We're not now not doing the playgrounds. The playgrounds are still going to happen. The only thing that is going to be put off for several years is the fields, right? But we are still going to have play space for our kids. Our kids are not going to continue to play in the circle out front, which we already knew that was going to happen. That was a part of the plan because we couldn't build the playground at the same time while the new school was being done. So we already knew that we were going to have an alternative location for the playgrounds. This decision is not going to impact that we're no longer going to have playground space for kids. We're going to still have that playground space outside. As we mentioned before, some of the 3 playgrounds that we have and the old playground that we have will be redone for the Douglas MacArthur students. So that is not going to impact the playgrounds that have already been allocated, 3 playgrounds that have been allocated for the new Patrick Henry. But we are going to continue to value our teachers, and we're going to continue to thank you for your service that you have done. And we appreciate what you're doing. And thanks for coming back home, too.
My name is Diane Kapusek. I live in the construction zone, but down a little ways, I feel for the people on Latham in front of the school there. I heard about it. I understand you can't control the police department. I know our principal at both my grandchildren go here. She can't get them. I complained because we had cars parked across the crosswalks, and we've got children that walk. And she said she keeps calling, but they can't get anyone to come out. I mean, that's not your problem, I understand, but what is within your venue of handling for your bus drivers and your buses? And today when I went to pick up my grandchildren at school, your buses for Patrick Henry were lined up on Polk down near the end. I watched them pull down in front of Polk, keep on going, and just sit there. They weren't our children's buses. So you can't control your buses, and you need to talk to your transportation, and you need to tell them they cannot be using all the side streets for their quick route in and out. So that's something you can do. I understand you don't control the police department. I appreciate the man that talked about the athletic fields, because that's been a concern for me, because middle school students, they need that camaraderie, the intramurals, the going out for the track and soccer and lacrosse. And you see it at the other middle schools, and these children are not going to be having that because there's no athletic field. They get a playground. They're 8 years old. I mean, they're 8th graders. I mean, this is ridiculous. They don't need a playground at that age. They need big muscle, get out, sports. That's what they're into. And I don't see that in your plan at all. The other thing I'm concerned about, we received no information about these meetings. There were no letters sent. Nothing was in the mail. And you dropped the ball on that. It makes us feel that you really didn't want us here. You could get under the radar if we didn't know what was going to happen. Luckily, we have people in our organization for the Seminary Valley that got the message out, or we wouldn't have had it. And we wouldn't be here. My other thing is the empathy I have for the Patrick Henry students. I watched your program last night with them, and I watched those women cry, weep. I mean, my heart went out to them. Those kids had lived in a war zone, and now you want to continue. They were sobbing to the point where they couldn't talk. So you're failing them, and you're failing those children. The rest, everyone has covered significantly, I think. Because I had pages here, and I sat and I listened and I watched and let other people talk. But these were the few things that I did want to talk about that weren't covered. And I think you're making a very big mistake. There's going to be a lot of ill will in this neighborhood for what you're going to put us through. There was a light at the end of the tunnel, and now it's a freight train, and it's a runaway freight train, and we're tied to the tracks, and you're just running right over us. And we thought there was an end, You were willing to stand by and wait for the athletic fields and the rec center and to have it all go away, and now you just want us to endure 4 more years? That's easy to say. You live in Old Town. I don't know where you live, but we're on the front lines. And I have grandchildren, and I worry about this. And you have not given me any feeling that you're going to be able to handle that. So I just can't believe that April 4th, you're going to make a decision. I understand you say you have to, but I don't think you've really considered this, or you've given us an opportunity at all.
I do have to say this. So one, I just have to say that we're not in the business of failing children in Alexandria City Public Schools. So I just want to make that very clear that our students are thriving every single day at Patrick Henry. They're having a robust learning environment every single day in our buildings. I was just there doing classroom visits last week in our schools. And we have some phenomenal staff members and teachers who will continue to provide them with a high quality education.
Oh, I understand
But
that.
I just wanted to make the point.
All right, I taught here. I know there are good teachers.
I just wanted to make the point.
Good administrators. All I'm
That is
saying
important
is
for
they are
us.
surrounded.
Yes, and I hear you. I just wanted to make a point because this is on Facebook Live, that I felt as a superintendent of Alexandria City Public Schools, it was very important for anybody watching to know that we would never be in the business of hurting children or putting children in a bad environment, and that is not the case. And I needed to make that very clear.
Well,
because
those
I'm
parents
making this
yesterday
public statement.
did not feel that, or they wouldn't have been that upset.
I wanted to thank you guys for doing this and taking the spirit that you are for our 3rd night in a row. We appreciate it because you seem to be in the community. Thanks everybody for coming out and expressing your concerns. The only thing I wanted to add is after the PTA president was Patrick Henry, we spoke last night. There will be a petition posted to our website, which we can provide you if you is interested. If folks want to get an electronic copy, bring it back to the room. But if that is helpful to make clear, I hope it's helpful discussion, and thank you very much.
I'm Ben Herman. I have a kindergartner and a 4th grader at Polk, and a lot of great friends over at Patrick Henry, in preschool with my kids, so it's very cool. The community actually here, someone said earlier that there's a lot of schools in this community, but there's also a lot of community in the 2 schools, so I wanted to turn that around a little bit. Also wanted to point out, there's been a lot of conversation about trust, and I know this is your 3rd grueling night, and this is really not the fun part of the job, but I didn't grow up in Alexandria. People who know me are gonna say, oh, here he goes again. I grew up in Chicago, and I went to the Chicago Public Schools in the 1970s, so I know about broken promises. I think I spent a maximum of about 40 days during a teacher strike, really doing nothing as a child. So that was my K-5 experience. And what happened was, it's kind of interesting, it's a funny story now looking back on it because I'm okay. I'm sure Virginia safely left Illinois. Had a very different experience from the president on the south side of Chicago. But what I took away from it was something really interesting, which is the kids on our own. Everybody knows what tag backs are, right? We all play tag in the playground, right? Well, in Chicago in 1978, we didn't use the term tag back. If you got tag backed, in other words, if you had a broken promise, if someone was cheating, it was called a Board of Education. That's what we called it, us kids. So I just trying to leave a little tongue-in-cheek to take the edge off a little bit. I thought I'd leave that with you. Just, make sure that it's always, and I'm sure you do because you're all educators, but make sure that it's always about the kids. And I just have a vision of driving by, not getting hit by anybody, not a dangerous thing, but noticing kids playing on the blacktop. And it's an interim thing. In Chicago, it was permanent, but it's interim for Patrick Henry, thank goodness. But it did bring back those memories of, no Board of Education and tag backs and things like that. So, as much as possible, help me to not relive my experience in the south side of Chicago as a property owner in Alexandria. I feel very affectionate towards the state of Virginia and the city of Alexandria for getting you away from that experience, but, just wanted to share that with you.
You've heard a lot about the intersections along Latham, especially Taney and Polk and Peacock, and the concerns about buses turning and people not stopping, especially on Taney, they just right through. If we're saving X millions of dollars on this, can we use that to hire crossing guards? Can we just transfer that to the police department? What's the solution here? Because I know that I and several other people have written to the city saying we need a crossing guard here. This is not safe. I drive my kids to school. I shouldn't have to. They can walk. Kids walk. But I don't feel safe walking them through that intersection, even with me there to shepherd them through. They're 5 and 8 years old. So if we can use that money to please get some traffic control, that would make us feel a little bit better. It would be something that we can see that you've heard and done something about. Because we've tried to do something about it, nothing.
We'll put in a plug for the crossing guards. Anybody who's interested in crossing guards, call the police department, because they've been trying to hire them all year long. So that portion isn't money. Traffic control, we'll definitely look at, but we need crossing guards to be filled. We've got vacancies. Anybody who's interested, let us know.
I was just going to mention, just a quick response to your question. It's Douglas MacArthur, if they move to the old Patrick Henry, there are crossing guards that are there that will also be moved. So that potentially can also happen. We don't know how many we will need to make that space work for us, but just know that those are the additional crossing.
Where are they going to park?
Well, I also want to comment on the safety, which has been mentioned several times tonight. I live on Latham. I have 4 daughters. I have one who will be in Camden next year. He's a Polk this year. Another one who will remain at Polk, and a new one coming into Polk, and then also preschool. So, and she'll eventually come. So we travel through that intersection a lot, Taney and Latham, and also the one where you all live, Polk, which is a blind corner. It's very dangerous. And I'd say a minimum 4 times a day we're through there either walking or driving, and it's just very dangerous. Once a week I see somebody go through a stop sign. I have had other people in the neighborhood mention to me the bus traffic on their side streets, because very quickly they have a hard time getting out of their driveways. So my point being, if you're hearing from me and from so many other people tonight about the safety is already an issue, I don't see how it's not going to be an issue in the future with more people. So that's one point. And then question is, instead of using Patrick Henry as a swing space, if we know that MacArthur and Cora Kelly and George Mason, well, specifically George Mason and Cora Kelly, that they will be able to do a swing space there on site, could we plan for the future where we have more time to maybe utilize one of those future swing spaces at Cora Kelly or George Mason to do the Douglas MacArthur, use that as a Douglas MacArthur swimming pool. When we have more time to plan for it, and where we can evaluate more thoroughly what the safety, transportation, and other issues would be at those locations, instead where I can pretty much guarantee the safety and transportation issues are going to be horrible and for me are not worth that cost of $60 million or whatever would be saved. The safety is just not worth that. Thank you.
If you don't mind, I'm going to turn around and talk to my friends and neighbors. For a bunch of you who don't know me, my name is Michael Doney. I'm a Latham neighbor. And I wanted to make you aware of something that I think you'll value, as I do. In the process of sort of coordinating this concept with the community, I found out at the same time as you, and what I'm going to do, I'm not going to talk to you as a parent, I'm going to talk to you as a representative of the community that's currently been asked to serve again on a thing called the Patrick Henry Advisory Group, and I'm glad to do that, by the way. And I've been listening all night long. So we all met with Dr. Hutchins on Monday night to kind of crack open this this dilemma that everyone's facing, and it is all of that. It's certainly a dilemma and more. We aired out some of the very same concerns that you have, and I'm, as a parent with one here and one at TC, I'm on board. What I wanted to leave you with tonight, and I might be the last speaker before these folks take it back, I want you to be aware that the advisory group is now activated. There's a bunch of new guys on it, but that's okay, because there's a few of us that lived through the first round. And I wanted you to at least be aware that the advisory group is now embracing its role as an advisor to A, the community, B, to the school board, and ultimately city council probably as well. And I just wanted you to be comfortable that there's somebody there that's doing the advocacy function. We're going to kind of be a watchdog, and we're going to do the best we can to talk to you through electronic means and other, but just be aware that we're in there, we're in the game. And I think it's going to be a challenge for us, but our objective will be to be a value-added advisor, to represent your concerns and to add value to the process. That's all I got for you tonight. Thank you.
Well, I just want to thank you all, one, for your time, because I know it is 8:40, but it was time well spent. And we do appreciate the fact that you all were open and honest about your concerns. All of the recommendations, suggestions, comments that were made this evening, all of them are being taken into consideration as we make the recommendation. We met with the Douglas McGarvey community, we met with Patrick Henry, now we're meeting with our full community, joint community this evening. And we will be sharing what our recommendation is with the board in the next couple of weeks. But I just wanted to thank you all for your time this evening, and I wish you all well for the rest of the evening. Thank you.